Welcome to the Guiding Brands podcast with your host and chief guide, Karen Vick. This is a podcast for service-based small businesses who want to get a handle on their marketing so they can attract and gain new customers. Welcome to another episode of the Guiding Brands podcast. Today, I have the wonderful pleasure of speaking with Wilson Zehr, I'm calling him at least, the professor of direct mail. It is my goal with the Guiding Brands podcast to introduce you to a variety of options for your marketing, marketing needs. And direct mail, although so many of us are saying that it's dead, it's no longer valid, it's a waste. I want you to hear from the professor of direct mail that this is actually a viable option for your marketing, for your small businesses out there. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Wilson to tell us a little bit about himself and his background and so on. Thank you.
Hi, Karen. Thanks for having me. Glad to see you.
Good to see you as well.
That's a great introduction. As you point out, I've been, I do run a firm called ZairMail. Actually, technically, the software firm is called Sendex, but the brand name that most people would recognize is ZairMail. That's like airmail with a Z on the front. Mm-hmm. But I've also taught marketing, entrepreneurship, finance, and business strategy at the university level for a couple of decades. So I've got plenty of lectures and plenty of scholarly writing as well, as well as my day job, which is helping people be more effective with direct mail.
Okay, wonderful.
In terms of my background, I have a degree in finance, MBA, PhD in management. Actually, I've completed 3 PhD programs. Way too much education.
You're like, maybe you shouldn't be on this podcast.
And then I've spent my entire career in technology, working on software, building products, software as a service, web to print, which we created working with the U.S. Postal Service in 1999. We did a lot of the early work with internet telephony. Wow. And just a lot of different things over the years. I've also helped a lot of other businesses and entrepreneurs get started and work through problems and things.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, okay. Well, then I take it back. You're the perfect guest. You might have a lot of PhDs, a lot of letters behind your name, and you're probably the best person to talk about this then. So, as Wilson mentioned, he is the founder of ZairMail. And ZairMail is a direct mail marketing service that has a unique set of features. As I was doing my, background on Wilson and the work that he does out there. So I want to first ask, why start a direct mail service? What was it that prompted you to even think about doing direct mail marketing?
We worked on a lot of different technologies, applications earlier. And when the internet first started to pick up steam, we noticed that there was this opportunity to do something called convergence. The idea is that there's a ton of legacy systems out there that were operating without the benefit of the internet. So there was probably an opportunity to integrate those so that they use the internet and become even more efficient. So that was the reason why we started with internet telephony. We were really working on the convergence between the public telephone network and the internet. So some of the early technologies used in programs like Skype came out of stuff we worked on. Wow. The company that funded the first version of ZairMail was started in 1999, so a long time ago, was Draper Fisher Jurvetson, and they worked on a number of different opportunities that did convergence. They did Hotmail, which was free mail. They did eFax, which is integrating the fax system. They did They worked on a lot of stuff. Actually, they were one of the companies that founded Skype as well, that
Hmm.
funded Skype. Um, so when we started out, we looked at the direct mail. Direct mail has always been a powerful advertising vehicle, um, but it was not integrated with the internet. So we thought, well, if we can if we can get the effectiveness of email and make it as fast and easy to use as the internet is or email is, then people would probably appreciate that. So that's what we started out to build, and it's just gotten better from there.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't, oftentimes people tell me they start these services out of some personal need. In your case, it was experimenting and using the technology that you worked with that led you to decide to go this route.
Yeah, and actually, it was a little bit of a twist. I know usually we simplify this part of the story, but we started out doing personal letters for individuals. So, and for free. So if you wanted to send your grandmother a letter, you would just type the letter, enter the letter,
Hmm.
and then push send, and it would say, would you like to include some useful gifts for this person and send it for free? Or would you like to pay for this mail? Most people said, yeah, send it for free. And then we would grab the name and the recipient of name and address of the recipient. We'd do a reverse lookup in a demographic database.
Hmm.
We'd pull the profile of the recipient and then reach into an ad database and put together a sheet of ads directly targeted to that individual. Because what our research showed us is that if you just gave people ads, people didn't like it. But if those were targeted to the individual, then they ended up looking like gifts rather than ads, and people
Hmm.
appreciated that. So we
Okay.
would send your letter to your grandmother and include one sheet with these gifts, and then we would send that in the mail. And we've got tens of thousands of users of that service.
Wow.
Um, it was very popular at the time. The issue was that when the internet, it takes time to ramp up and be able to match um, the advertising revenue with the postage. The thing about mail is that every time you send a letter, it costs money. You have to pay
Hmm.
for a stamp and an
Hmm.
envelope, unlike email. So there is a hard cost to it. And
Right.
so getting those two to match was tricky. And then, of course, we had the internet meltdown. And in our industry, it was like threefold because we had the dot-com meltdown, and then we had 9/11, and then we had the whole anthrax scare.
Oh, wow.
You
Wow.
know,
Yes.
remember where a bunch of postal people got poisoned?
Yeah.
Um, of course, it didn't affect our particular type of mail because the sender never touches the mail.
Right.
Right? I couldn't reach through the screen and
Right.
somehow infect you. But it's hard to get that message out. In fact, it's the safest kind of mail is the kind
Hmm.
we send.
Wow.
But
Interesting.
yeah, regardless of that, there was a decision made. Our board decided at that time that we did have this other application we were working on, where we're automating direct mail, traditional direct mail,
Hmm.
and not traditional because it's internet driven, but traditional direct mail advertising. And the company decided to focus on that. So that's what we did.
Hmm.
Uh, but oddly enough, we've kind of come full circle because we're just rolling out a product now called Speedy. It's
Hmm.
and anybody on your podcast can actually download it and try it. The first couple of letters are free. You just it's at www.zairmail.com/speedy,
Okay.
Speedy.
Hmm.
And if you download that, it creates a desktop icon. And when you want to send a letter, you just type your letter, just like you normally would in Word or
Hmm.
whatever your text editing program is.
Hmm.
Save the file to your desktop. Then you drag and drop the document on top of the Speedy icon. And it says, do you want to upload this or send it? If you say send it, it'll ask you for the address where you want to send it. And
Really?
yeah, you can enter the address or you can grab it from a pull down if you've used it before. If you do that, it just goes. It turns into a letter. It goes into the mail.
Get out. Wow.
And so that works with even one letter. Now, what is missing is we're not doing the advertising component on this
Right.
one. After the first two, you have to pay, um, but it's just the cost of a letter. So I mean, it's slightly more than the cost of a postage stamp, and it's much faster, easier, more intuitive. And you've got tracking. There's automatic tracking. You'll get email confirmation of delivery, and we'll keep a record of all your messages.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
yeah,
That's
so
really cool.
it's like mail, only faster, easier, more effective, and I
Hmm.
think slightly more
Oh,
expensive,
so
a
good.
couple pennies or something.
I just did a letter of reference and recommendation for a friend, and that would probably have been a really cool way to send this. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
it's interesting because we don't think. I mean, direct mail. We do millions of pieces of direct mail. I mean, through the regular service. So that's. I mean, we know that that exists, and people are still using that. It's more popular than ever. Um, well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, over the last 20 years, we've definitely seen a decline
Yes.
in the volume of mail overall.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't know is that there's two classes. Well, there's actually, I'm going to simplify a little bit. There's a number of classes of mail, but the two most common are first class mail and marketing mail. Over the years, the marketing mail, the Postal Service continues to try and rebrand it. So it started out being called bulk mail,
Mm-hmm.
what we call junk mail, right, back
Mm-hmm.
in the
Mm-hmm.
day. And they changed the name to Standard A. And then most recently, they've been calling it marketing mail.
I see.
Um, So if you look at the volumes over time, we've seen a large decrease in the volume of first class mail because a lot of that was transaction oriented. So somebody would send you your Visa card statement and you'd write a check and send it back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, most people are doing their Visa card statements um,
Online.
online these days. And in fact, if you look at the way mine are set up, they auto pay. I don't even see them.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Um, so a lot of that volume has fallen off, but the stuff that looks like marketing mail has always been driven by return on investment, right? We look at the sales generated by the mail, and if we've generated more in sales, including lifetime customer value, then then we had to spend to do the campaign. Then that's a good deal for the company, so we would continue to
Hmm.
do. And since most direct mail has always been driven that way, as long as it continues to produce a positive return, people will continue to use it.
Well, and that leads me to one of the questions I had was, how do you quantify? Do you have any examples of, successful campaigns? How do you measure this? Does your system actually help the advertiser track, the ROI, or is this maybe something like, say, for instance, what I would do, and I have done this in the past, is actually I'll include a QR code on the mailing, and obviously there's a link that's generated. I could actually add a UTM, a special link, to this. So knowing that I can track activity to that particular link through my analytics, that's one way that I could tell. But then I don't necessarily know that the user buys directly from that. So how do you help your customers, your advertisers track,
Sure. Let me touch on that. If I can, let me just finish up. I mean, I think I took us on a kind of a detour, if you will.
Yeah, it's all
We
right.
so we were talking about mail and we were talking about single letters. And I was saying a lot of people aren't sending single letters anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at a lot of organizations, corporations, people are still using a Pitney Bowes postal meter. Those are still pretty common.
Mm.
Or
So
stamps.com.
attorneys' offices, attorneys
Mhm.
use them. Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's a $6 billion business. And that's been relatively constant over the
Mm.
last decade. So there's an awful lot of people still sending single letters, even if they're not using it for their credit card bills.
I see.
So,
Okay.
so you make a very good point, though. This idea of being able to track our responses. I mean, in order to be able to justify the ROI, we definitely want to know, um, what kind of sales, what kind of results we're producing.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, when we design a direct mail piece, I mean, it's going to depend. We've got this whole issue around what type of piece we're going to design. I mean, the kinds of things we see most commonly are postcards, letters, self mailers, and something we have called a snap pack.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, and the choice of the mail piece is going to depend on a, Price is an issue for a lot of people, especially if you're looking at ROI. But secondly, based on the content, does it have to be personal, or is it something that can be public? If you were trying to, minimize your price and be something, and you have information that's relatively public, then you can use something like a postcard. A
Mm-hmm.
postcard is like going to be like a little billboard in the mail,
Mm-hmm.
and they can have different purposes. So, you can have on any advertising piece, there's this idea of brand advertising versus response advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Brand advertising just builds the brand in the recipient's mind,
Exactly.
where the response is trying to get people
To
to
take an action.
exactly, yeah. So go
Mm-hmm.
to a URL or call a phone number, whatever. The second one turns out is a lot easier to measure.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm doing my postcard or my letter, with a letter, the first job is to get an open, right?
Right.
Postcard, we're going to get an immediate impression. Um, the general rule of thumb is we want to give people as many options as they can for getting back to us because different people feel comfortable interacting in different ways. So some people will only respond to a phone number. Some people will only respond to an URL or a QR code or something. So we need to make sure we have one, a response device, but we also want to have the response device that the recipient is going to be most comfortable using.
Or multiple.
Yeah, no,
Put all
exactly.
three. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, but there's some people that just if there's not just a phone number, if it's not a toll-free number, even though nobody pays for for calls on their smartphone anymore, right? Everybody gets
Right.
these unlimited calls. Still, for some reason, if you see a toll-free number, some
You feel it's
people
legitimate. Yeah.
will
Yeah.
only call that toll-free number.
Yeah.
But it turns out that these days there's services too where you can buy, a pool of toll-free numbers or a
Mm-hmm.
single toll-free number and then map it to your number. But if I do that and if I put a different toll-free number on each campaign, then I can actually tie the response to a specific campaign.
Hmm.
For the internet,
Interesting.
if I can map it to a different landing page or a
Right.
different URL, so
Right.
some information I can scrape, then I can also depend on it too.
Right.
So the
Right.
one thing, so that'll give us this idea of, we know what our spend is to send out the program. If we can capture that information, we know how much it costs per lead. We can know how much even though leads are great, and there's, especially if we're doing awareness, we're really looking for sales.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we want to be able to look at how many sales are generated, but oftentimes, the thing that's overlooked is that it's not just sales that's interesting to us, it's lifetime customer value. So somebody might respond to that number, they might buy one product, and we say, oh, wait, we're a little underwater. But if they're going to come back and buy that same product every 6 months, think about it, you buy an HP
Mm-hmm.
printer and they're going to make you use HP ink. The printer, a lot of times they'll sell it at cost or even below cost because they know that you're going to buy ink twice a
Right.
year and they make a bunch of margin on the ink. So when they're looking at their lifetime customer value, they are not looking just at the purchase of that printer.
Printer.
They're
Mm-hmm.
looking at the purchase of all the products related to that printer over the next 3 to 4
Mm-hmm.
years.
Paper. Yeah. Yeah. That's
Right.
that's a good point. That's a,
So
you make a
yeah,
good point.
so if you can factor in lifetime customer value, it gives us a realistic value of what that business is worth to us. The other
Okay.
thing I think I would expand on there too is it really there's some things that the Direct Marketing Association um, reports that on average direct mail returns over $13 for every dollar spent.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's not many mediums that really do that, but it does require that we're very targeted and that we have an offer that's important to the audience we're trying to reach.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
But I could also see this because I mean, yeah, everybody gets junk mail. Calling it junk mail. I get it all the time. I'm on the national do not call list, so reduce the amount of mail that I get. And there are times when I see the same thing over and over again, or a very similar piece coming to me from the same advertiser, and I will ignore it, until it becomes something that is valuable to me. So as advertisers need to consider that too in their decision making, as you know. Yeah.
They do, and in fact, if you're using the same list to mail to continuously,
Hmm.
we would tend to see our response rates fall off a little bit every
Mm,
time we use the same list because the people that are most interested into our offer, they opt in right away.
right away. Right.
And the folks that are more reluctant, maybe over time you get a few of them, but the take rate tends to fall a little bit.
Yeah, and you probably, sending the same mail every month versus maybe twice a year, every 6 months or something like that. It would be, depending on the product and
Right. Well,
service.
it
Hmm.
also comes back to what we were talking about before, this branding versus
Yeah.
response.
Hmm.
So the brand advertising is more like, think about when you see a Nike ad and it says, just do it. There's
Hmm.
no URL on there, there's no phone number, there's no
Right.
way to respond to that ad. But what they're hoping is that when it's time to buy shoes and you go into a retail store and you reach for the shelf, you'll be reaching for your
For
Nike
an
product
hiking.
because
Hmm.
that's the brand you remember.
Hmm.
Um, so somebody who's doing that kind of brand advertising, I might do use the same list and repeat over and over, it, really expecting not a direct response, but maybe an uptick in my retail sales
Right.
in whatever channel I'm using.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. To your point, it depends. The campaign needs to have a goal, and brand awareness is probably the best thing that you could get out of it, whether a purchase is made or not. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and yeah, that well, direct mail, the direct mail, what I will say is that it's a tool, just like all of the other tools
Yeah.
we have.
Hmm.
It's not the ideal tool for every purpose, but direct mail does do a bunch of things that no other medium can do. So if you need to do those things, it's the right tool.
Hmm.
So for example, mail can touch every household and business in America 6 days a week. And it's
True.
proactive. It's going to come find you. You don't need to find it. It's not like a search engine where I'm waiting for somebody to, sit down and type in my keyword. No, I'm
Hmm.
going to identify the people that are important to me, and I'm going to reach out to them with a message that I think they need to hear.
Hmm.
And it's very rare to find a medium that could do that. Even if we're talking about like things like broadcast TV these days, I mean, a large population of a large portion of the population doesn't watch broadcast TV.
Right.
I
And
mean, it's
streaming.
becoming
Hmm.
harder and harder to reach people that way. So every household and business. Um, secondly, it's proactive communication. Thirdly, it's the demographics are very well developed. If I wanted to try to target, Jewish dentists in New Jersey that have purchased a car in the last 6 months, I can do that. That list is available. I can't do that with using any other tool that I'm aware of. Um, and we know that if I get the right offer in front of the right person, good things happen. And in fact, the list is the most important part of any
Hmm.
direct response campaign.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Well.
so, and then I guess the final one is it's just built into the American psyche. People are used to coming home. The Postal Service calls it the mail moment, right? Where you get home and you have your mail. And I think they romanticize it a little, maybe a little bit. But but the idea is that people are used to coming home, getting the mail, looking through it. Some of it they'll keep, some of it they won't. If you've got a postcard that's impactful, maybe you end up on the fridge. Maybe you
Right.
stick around for 6 months. That would be good.
Yeah, it's funny because I actually I listened to a podcast. Don't remember which one years ago, and they were discussing this example of a chimney sweep. This guy, he would do everything in his power to get repeat business, right?
Mhm.
Mailers, postcards, you name it, and nothing was happening until he started noticing or paying attention to what was happening in his customers' homes when he got there. So if they had a dog and he would, pet the dog and, they were happy and whatnot, and that children, he'd say hi, but especially ones that had pets, he would actually take a photo of the pet create a postcard, specifically for that customer using an app or something that had that pet's photo on it. They
Mhm.
get that in the mail, and guess what? That postcard is the one that they put on the refrigerator. It's
Nice.
there, So, smart guy. And then he started seeing an uptick in repeat business because his name is on that postcard along with that photograph of their pet, of Buffy or whatever, So that was that was pretty clever. And I heard that, I said, yeah, because a lot of us, we continue, like I said, sending these pieces of mail out, in the hopes that something will happen. I mean, no realtors, I'm in Florida, and
Mhm.
real estate here is a big deal like everywhere else. And someone sells two doors down from me, and I see the same realtor, sending me mail multiple times over a month period, telling me that my neighbor sold and are you ready to sell your property, kind of thing. So personalizing it is key. And that's something that I also wanted to touch on, is the fact that mail can be personalized. Physical mail is in a similar way that email can be. We can have a mailing list. We send out emails based on people's purchase habits and so on. We have their name, we have their email address. We know where they are in the country. We know, if we're dealing with or selling a product or service that's related to seasons, then we can actually target them specifically, so we can make it personalized as well. And the same thing that we can do with snail mail, with physical mail. But I wanted to ask you this: have you seen, an integration of digital marketing along with direct mail? Have you seen anything like that in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, in the industry, we talk about omni-channel marketing. I mean, this
Mm-hmm.
idea about being able to use multiple different tools and target the customer. And if we think about the customer journey, being able to ride with them along with this along this journey to buying a product or service, it's a little different than some of the things we're talking about, because when we're talking about something with a customer journey, usually we're talking about something a little more consultative,
Mm-hmm.
that takes multiple steps. But certainly, I mean, if you do postcards and letters today, most of them have a website. Most of them have um,
A social media account. Mm-hmm.
a toll-free
Yeah.
number. I
Mm-hmm.
can I can give you an example. We worked on a bond measure in Eastern Oregon, and they were trying to do a new school bond, and the school district had done a very good job of managing the funds. And when the interest rates came down, they refinanced their debt. So they actually had an opportunity with these matching state funds to get to use to be able to take on more debt, bring in the state funds, and create new school facilities with little or no extra payment for the taxpayer. It was slightly
Mm.
more, but not significant. But they really needed to get that word out and get that approved. Um, so, I mean, what we did in that case, we started out by, building a little website, a website that would contain information about the bond, places where we could put pictures, testimonials. We went out and we worked with local community members to get their testimonials. We had one case where we had three generations of family, grandpa, dad, and then the son, that all gone to that school and have seen these facilities
Mm.
kind of degrade over time, and they're looking forward to the new things they could do. So we found this content, and then we used social media with the PTA, Parent Teachers Association,
Mm-hmm.
and got them to send messages to their friends and constituents. We also used traditional tools like yard signs and
Mm.
door hangers. And we went to meet. We went to little meetings, coffee meetings, and talked to people, handed out flyers, and did grassroots kind of political action. From the direct mail standpoint, what we did to support that effort is we were able to go to the county, and the county And this county is not alone. Most counties will sell a list of registered voters.
Mm-hmm.
And it just cost us the cost of the media. It didn't cost anything in this case because I just brought a stick they could load it on. Um, but then we took that database and we divided it into four pieces. We looked at people who had children who owned real estate. So if the people who owned real estate versus those who didn't. And so the people who own real estate, they would pay the taxes for their new bond.
Mm-hmm.
The other folks wouldn't. And then we divided those two lists into people who had children and people who didn't. The people who paid taxes and had children, they had a lot of things to gain. And so what we would do for that audience is we could talk about the benefits to their children of paying this. The other group, we have to talk about community and giving back and supporting your neighbors, et cetera.
And remember you went to the school. Yeah,
Exactly.
Nostalgia. Mm-hmm. Okay.
From the other side, if we're looking at people who don't own property or renters, in most cases, those folks are gonna vote yes anyway if we can communicate the benefit to the community because it's not going to cost them anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all a good thing. So we created those different messages. We were able to do 1 or 2 email campaigns leading up to it. In Oregon, all elections are mail-in. It's been like that for 25 plus years, just because the cost benefits are so much more, compelling with a mail-in election. But we can tell from the Secretary of State when those ballots are going to mail. And so when we know that they're going to mail, based on our experience, we can tell when they'll be delivered. And then we time our direct mail piece to arrive the day before or the same day the ballot moved. Because what we find is that some people receive their ballot in the mail and they mail immediately. Some people set it aside. They're going to wait until the election day, gather more information. So we hit them once when they receive it. So we get the early voters. Mm-hmm. Then we hit them again just before the ballot.
Before the actual election. Okay.
Wow. And what we saw is that when the first time that they worked on this ballot measure, it passed, but barely. I mean, they were up all night. They won by 3 votes or something. Mm. And we won by thousands of votes. I mean, it was a hugely different result. And the result is because we were able to use all of these different tools to drive different behaviors and take these voters on their journey and motivate that behavior. But I wouldn't say it was just one tool that made the difference. I mean, it's a combination of tools. Yeah. And that website played an important role. Email played a role. Social media and direct mail, of course, played a huge role.
Nice. Wonderful. That's a very good example because I could see a local small business, utilizing something like this. I have a little window treatment company. That's one of my clients. They could benefit from something like that as well.
Right. What I tell most of my students in marketing class, and then in this day and age, I mean, for a large segment of the population, if you don't have a website or a web presence, then you don't exist. Mm-hmm. And if you have a crummy web presence, then you're a crummy company. And if you have a good web presence, you're a good company. And that's not always the reality, but that's the perception. Mm-hmm. So for a lot of small businesses, you need to start out by creating that web identity or presence. Mm-hmm. And then we can talk about tools like direct mail, email, other things to drive volume there. Mm-hmm. And then with your website, of course, you have to decide what you want to do with it. I mean, are you going to use it for e-commerce? People could buy stuff. Are you going to use it to generate leads or provide information like a brochure? I mean, some people just use it that way and you have to call. Mm-hmm. Certainly, if you go to Boeing's website, they're not taking orders for jumbo jets.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But still an important piece of their marketing mix.
Yeah. I mean, you still need some form of, a touch point. It's building touch points with your audience, with your customers. Okay. So I know also there's been advancement in technology around, direct mail. Like one of them, and I've seen this in person, one company I worked for, we actually were being, let's see, wooed by a large marketing agency, and what they sent us in mail once was actually a video in a box. You know, yeah. So do you have experience with video and print in that technology?
We've worked on some programs like that. At Sequent Computers, we had one where we would send out a video and actually a bag of microwave popcorn and
Nice.
some treats. So it was like inviting people to a movie, except it was a movie in your home.
I like that.
It, we call it a dimensional mailing. So there's a mail that's not just a letter or postcard, but it includes some other kinds of gifts.
Hmm.
And we do,
Tangible.
yeah, and we do work on those. There's some stuff that's reasonably easy to do, like stickers and magnets,
Mm.
and talk about getting on the fridge magnet.
Yeah. Yeah.
We will work with an eye care company in Hawaii that sends out their appointments every month on a fridge magnet, so that
Pretty
the
cool.
customer can put it on the fridge.
Pretty
So those are
cool.
pretty straightforward, but we have other people doing stuff that is really elaborate.
Hmm.
Um, I had somebody an agency send us something that was like it was like a 4 by 4, um, 4 feet by 4 feet.
Hmm.
What do I want to call it? It was like a maze, where you start here, you get here, and they actually
Really?
put our logo in the middle of it and put glass on the front of it. It was really a nice piece.
Really? And that was that was mailed to people's mailboxes, was it?
It was, yeah, and
Wow.
it was
Wow.
well, it was parcel post. So,
Yeah. And
so
was it so it's just one giant piece, or was it folded? Was it collapsed?
that particular one had to be one giant piece because it had the glass in it, a big
Right.
piece of glass. So I think the sky's the limit. We can do there's we can do a lot of different things. The problem is that you're going to have to make sure that the returns are worth it, right?
Hmm.
So they could
Hmm.
that piece. I don't know what it cost. I mean, it was at least $25 or $30. I mean, I'm
Mm.
supposing it was much more than
Much
that.
more than that. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so they would have to get that much business from us in order for, and including lifetime customer value for that to make sense.
Right.
And I don't know if that worked out for them or not. But I saw something recently where somebody was doing a fencing company was sending people sample fences in the mail. These little tiny screw fences with screwed on
That's clever.
pickets.
That's
Um,
clever. Hmm.
Once again, I mean, it wasn't a cheap piece, but I mean, if you've identified a target audience, a reasonably, manageable sized target audience who's more likely to buy, then maybe it will make
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. I have a friend who's a graphic designer, and she loves elaborate mailings, postcards. So she's always looking for unusual folds and things like that. I think those things are intriguing too, when someone gets a piece of mail and it looks like a regular, what did you call that? The pack, the ad pack. Was that what it's called? It's
Oh, and
folded.
dimensional.
Yeah, and once you open that, it reveals something else inside. An elaborate, 3-dimensional piece that pops out of it
Right.
and things like that. Yeah,
They do have those pop-up cards.
yeah,
That
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
you open them and the characters stand up or whatever's inside.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
But in order to build a piece like that, unless you can find something off the shelf that really can be used to communicate your message, then
Hmm.
some
It's
of that stuff can
difficult.
be really expensive to.
It's difficult. So which brings me to this. So ZairMail, your website states that you can turn around mailings in a short period of time. Can you tell us a little bit about your process? How ZairMail works. You know, from uploading your graphic or having your team design. I think that's a feature. Am I wrong? Is it?
No, we can help. We're happy to help. It turns out that most of our customers are come to us. They've already have their piece designed. It's
Hmm.
fine either way. And same with lists. If you need a targeted direct mail list, we can help you find that. We have lists from Axiom, which is the largest consumer database in the United States, or Dun& Bradstreet for business lists. But a lot of our customers come to us with a house list or other lists that they've pulled as well. So for our services, it doesn't make a difference. The basic idea is you upload a document, you upload a list, and by the way, those documents in a list can live in your account. So we have plenty of customers that'll have a collection of documents they're going to use for marketing that are in their account, and they'll have a collection of lists.
Okay.
So basically, upload a document, upload a list, see a preview of what's going to be sent in real time. You like what you see, you push the button, you're in the mail tomorrow, the next day at a savings.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the way we do it is we're a software company primarily. So the software should be very polished and fast, which it is. It's just a wizard. It literally takes 60 seconds to launch a direct mail campaign. And then we fulfill that through a network of production partners across the United States.
Okay.
Which we can move that mail electronically as far as we can. And as we get closer to the destination, then we can print it and move it physically. So that's got an environmentally friendly aspect to it, but it also has a timing aspect to it. The mail gets delivered faster. In addition, because of the way the network's constructed, we don't have any capacity issues. We have built-in redundancy. So if we have customers that'll upload a job, so 50, 100,000 pieces that they need to mail tomorrow, and we're able to do that just because of the structure of our network. So somebody sent me a quote from a competitor the other day. They're looking for 50,000 pieces of mail, and it was to take 10 days before that piece would go in the mail. We don't have any turnarounds that are 10 days unless somebody's wants to hit like a voting date and they want to schedule it.
Multiple and
our stuff turns around immediately. I mean, we don't, that would be very unusual for us.
I see. Okay. So I had a question. Question just popped in my head. It just went.
Sorry, I distracted you.
No, that's okay. So in talking about this, are you able to actually say, I'm going through the process of mailing? Will I get a complete quote at that point within that 60-second period where I'm uploading my file and then determining where it's going to go and who it's going to get mailed to? You can actually provide that estimate of mailing or cost of mailing and shipping, all of that stuff, printing and everything in one sitting. Am I able to see that?
Yeah, it's instant. You just as you go through the process, it's set up like a wizard. So you can upload your documents and your list first, keep them in your account if you want. But within your ZairMail account, and there's a demo on the site too. You can sign up for the masterclass on the site if you want somebody to walk you through it, or you can call me. I'm happy to do that. But the basic idea is that you push the button that says send direct mail. It says what document do you want to use? You pick from a list. You say it asks you for the list. You pick that. It puts the two together and generates a proof for you. And then you could select options, different kinds of postage and paper and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've done that, selected the options, it'll give you the price immediately. It says, here's what it's going to cost to do that. And, and you can go back and change your options if you want or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then you click the button and it just submits it.
Nice. Okay.
We also have a feature that I think is pretty unique to our tool in that you can just be close. I wouldn't want to call it AI because everybody talks about AI these days. But within our world, it's going to be as close as you get, where say you submit a piece and it's set up like a letter,
Mm-hmm.
and what you really want to send is a snap pack.
Mm-hmm.
And a snap pack is the package that like you get rebates on, or a PIN number from the bank where you have to tear
It's
off.
folded and sealed on the edges. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a letter set up. You want to be a snap pack. You submit it and you say, I want it to be a snap pack, and you turn on production proof. That letter goes into our production facility. We'll actually create a snap pack for it. We'll take that letter. We'll create a snap pack. We'll give you back a proof. You say, oh, okay, I like that. And you approve it, and it goes out as a snapback instead of a letter.
Nice, nice,
Yeah, so
interesting.
it's all, we automate where we can. We help with proofing. Once the piece is submitted, you'll get an alert when it's processed, printed, mailed, delivered. Um,
Nice, nice.
yeah, we just try to automate the whole process. We're technology people, so we're always looking for ways to use technology to make the process work faster and easier.
Sounds good. Okay. And then I also saw on your website that you have a partnership with the U.S. Postal Service. What's that partnership?
We were one of the originally we were one of 5 online affiliates approved by the U.S. Postal Service. There
Hmm.
was one to do postcards. We did postcards and letters. There's a company that did lists and some other things. So um, the Postal Service in general, I mean, back when we started, they were a little suspicious. I'm not sure why, but over time, the Postal Service has come to embrace services like ZairMail because we make it faster and easier to do mail. So if we make it faster and easier to do mail, people will send more mail, which is
Hmm.
a benefit to the U.S. Postal Service. Plus, if you think about the mail we generate, I mean, it's going to move a lot faster than the reference you talked about.
Hmm.
Because what we're going to do is we take that letter or we take the list from your mailing and we're going to pre-sort it, which means we put it through the National Change of Address database and automatically identify anybody that's moved. Then we put it through something called CAS, identifies make sure it's a deliverable address. We lay down a barcode on the piece. Then all the mail's sorted in carrier route order. So the order the carrier will actually deliver them, it's bundled, put in trays, tags are put on it,
Wow.
and that's how we deliver it to the Postal Service. So a lot of the work's already been done for them.
Wow.
They just, ship it to post offices and let the carrier deliver it.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so it's going to be faster, easier, and the mail is going to move much more smoothly, which is a benefit for the Postal Service.
Okay.
You
And
know,
yeah, and I know, Wilson, there are other people who do what you do, direct mail. For instance, one of the printing services that I use in my business, they offer direct mail services. I can either select a series of zip codes in an area or give them a list or whatever. So it's interesting to hear your process and know that you're providing the technology behind this process to get the mailers or pieces to the printers who will then deliver and so on. So I guess my question is, you know there are other people who do similar things to what you do. What is it that's your secret sauce? What's the thing that says that you should be um, the service that people choose for mailing? Is it the power of being able to get your mailing done within rapid time and sent out, to your network of printers and facilities across the U.S.?
I think there are probably people, there's certainly people who do, other
Hmm.
people who send direct mail.
Yeah.
In the days we would talk about print houses or mail houses or things of that nature. I'm not aware of anybody that does exactly what we do, which is automate direct mail campaigns in the way that we do.
Okay.
Um, and literally, and if you talk about that application Speedy, where you're dragging and dropping on a desktop icon, I don't know. I don't think anybody. Well, I haven't seen anybody who does it.
I've never heard of it. Yeah, yeah.
Um, so, I mean, that's the idea. Is we're just going to make it faster, easier, less expensive, and the turnaround times you're going to see at a service like ZairMail are going to be a fraction of what you might see from a regular provider. As I mentioned, I saw one. I mean, just yesterday, literally, it was a quote, and it was 10 days to get something in the mail. It used
Oh.
to be like that in the printing industry. You'd send a piece to the printer, and then you'd get the blue line. You'd get something back called the blue line, then you correct it, and then you send it back, and then that happened 2 or 3 times, and then finally you get to a piece, the printer would print it, and then printers traditionally didn't do mail, so then I would have to go to a mail house where they do the folding and addressing, and so I
Hmm.
mean it might be a couple of weeks in the process, And ZairMail, it's like literally you submit it now and it's gone. We take care of it. And by the way, the faster you send it, the faster you're going to get results, which for a lot of businesses is really important. That 2 weeks you're waiting for the other guys, that's before it even gets in the mail.
Wow. So
And they,
this example that you shared, this 10-day quote that this customer had, how, what's the difference between you? How long were you able to say that you could deliver this within a day? Same?
oh no, the process is completely different. I mean,
Yeah.
when you give us your document, your list, I mean,
Hmm.
we do a merged version, assuming there's merged. Some documents have no merge fields, it's just
Hmm.
static. But even if it has a merge field, we merge it before you even order it. We show you what it's going to look like and get you to approve it. But then everything in the back end is automated. So we take those documents, we lay down the the two-dimensional barcodes the inserter needs, and they just flow right through the system. They go right
Hmm.
into production, go into press, and it helps that we're doing a lot of the same kinds of mail.
Over. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
some of that's predictable.
Yeah.
Um, but we have the electronic stuff on the front end is all automated, well understood and automated these days too. So I mean, an example I gave, I'm guessing they're just, they're just using legacy systems.
I
They've
see.
kind of always done it that way, and their customers haven't complained, so
Right.
they
Right.
continue to do it that way.
Right.
But it's just not feasible. I mean,
Okay.
if I had a customer who told me, "Hey, I've got this, this open house in 10 days, and I need to get a piece in front of people so they know to show up," then we'd work backwards, and we could conceivably it could take, we could put something on the calendar for 10 days out, so it'd arrive at the right time to get traffic at that open house. But I don't have any customers really, unless they're scheduled like that. No customers that would be satisfied with 10-day turnaround. I
Wow.
mean, our standard turnaround is 48 hours, and
That's
if and we're doing next day mailing for a lot of customers.
Well, that's your unique value proposition there. That's your shtick. That's
Well,
awesome.
it's also,
Yeah.
I would say, it's high touch too. I mean, if you've got an issue, we're there. We're going to answer the phone. We're going to help you fix it. We're not going to charge you much money to do that. You've got the document. Here's what I'm thinking. What if we move this piece here? What piece, or that piece there? What do you think? And we'll give you our advice. We'll tell you what we've seen based on what else in the network, what we would do, and we're not going to charge you anything for doing that. I mean,
Hmm.
in our business model, we just want to get stuff in the mail. So
Hmm.
any problem we can help you solve that will get your program in the mail is good for both of us.
Yeah. One thing, and you do it really well. So, just to wrap up, I wanted to ask, every I'm the chief guide at Guiding Brands, and every guest on the podcast, I consider them guides as well. So you're today's guide. Um, what advice would you want to give to the small business owner that's listening to this right now, as it relates to direct mail? And using your service. What kind of, do you have any tips? As it relates to what you do, that you can impart to the audience?
Yeah, I have a couple of ideas come to mind. First of all, if you're doing direct mail, you should be using ZairMail. I mean,
Okay.
that's just the way it is. I mean, it's as I said, they're just tools, and there are a lot of different tools. But if you're going to use this tool called direct mail, you should be using ZairMail because it's the fastest, easiest, most reliable way to do it.
Okay.
That's bottom line. If you wanted to be able to send letters, individual letters, you should download Speedy and use a desktop icon because nobody else does that. And it's going to be, if you have a letter to send, it's going to be really convenient. Next time you want to send a letter to mom or a recommendation letter or something, it's going to be there waiting for you, and we'll make it fast and easy. And thirdly, I would say in my marketing classes, we cover this idea. Well, I've got a model that I can give you a link to. Other people, um, I think there might be examples, other examples, audio example or video examples. But anyway, something called the strategic marketing model. And
Hmm.
the strategic marketing model we use to position our product before we actually market it. So when we think about marketing, when a lot of people think about marketing, they think about the little m, and the little m in marketing is sales. But
Mm-hmm.
marketing, strategic marketing is much more than that, right? And so with the strategic marketing model, we start out by understanding what our product offering is, who we're targeting it to, right? So there's the you know the product and the people piece, and
Mm-hmm.
we need to synchronize those things so they kind of match. And then we're going to go down and look at the pricing, and the pricing is a function of cost of goods sold, right? That should be the floor
Right.
versus value that we're creating for the customer or competitive offerings.
Right.
Right? So we pick a price point that allows us to pick our place or our channels. Once we understand the channels, then we can think about promotion, and direct mail is part of promotion because the role of promotion is to create awareness and support activity in the channel. So we can't do that until the other pieces are done.
Right.
So especially for a small business where you don't have a lot of money to waste, right? You may have a very small marketing budget and you have to make the most impact possible with it. Being able to properly um, create and position your product before you decide on a promotional tool is really critically important. So if you can walk through that process and then start picking tools that allow you to target the right people, the right place, and
Yeah.
to help with that journey,
Exactly.
um, is going to be really powerful, I think, for most small businesses.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And you see, that's why I call them the professor of direct mail. you know, but this was enlightening as it relates to direct mail. I never quite got the process just of how all this works, and your system of being able to access this network using your software, using your tools to make the um, initiation of a direct mail piece easy and simple for customers. Because I've looked at there's some printers, or I've tried, and it's kind of cumbersome to sit there and go through their platform. So if it is as you described, then this is definitely something that people should look at. And so all these bits of information that you've shared here, Speedy, I'll definitely have a link to it. ZairMail will definitely be linked in the show notes, along with ways that people can actually reach you. So can you tell the people where we can actually get in touch with you besides ZairMail's website? I know you're on LinkedIn. There are other places where people can actually communicate with you, or that's it.
Sure, you can reach me on LinkedIn. You can, and of course through ZairMail.
Mm-hmm.
Wilson at ZairMail.com is my email address.
Mm-hmm.
There's a toll-free number on the site. If you call it and ask for me, you'll get directly to me.
Awesome.
I mean, that would be the best rather than getting you to write down a number,
Okay.
although I'm happy to repeat it.
Okay.
Um, I shouldn't, yeah, I'm lots of places on the internet. I shouldn't be too hard to track down.
And it's ZairMail, Z as in zebra, AIRMAIL.com. Okay. And Wilson, this was a pleasure. Thank you. We kind of started off a little bumpy with the technology, but we got it right. We got
Yeah,
it right. Thank you so much. This has been very enlightening, and I hope the audience comes away with, at the bare minimum, thinking about the tools that you're going to use in your marketing. This isn't, the only tool in your toolbox. I'm here for, to share with you um, options that you have for marketing your business. Everybody is online. Yes, that's where you should be. That's where a lot of people are. But you can complement your online marketing with offline, processes and tools like ZairMail. So thank you again, Wilson, for joining me on the podcast today, and for everybody else out there, thank you for joining us, and I will see you next time. Thank you.
thank you, Karen.
That's all for this episode of the Guiding Brands podcast. I look forward to sharing with you again next week, so please don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Thank you, and bye for now.